Welcome back. You're still watching Top Story. Let's continue to know more about new party list groups vying for seats in the Philippine House of Representatives. Our next guest is Attorney Valera of the Coalition ng Indigenous People Party List. Good afternoon, Attorney. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ron and Denise at mga milyong-milyong katutubong Pilipino from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
Now, Attorney, tell us more about the party list. It talks about, of course, this coalition of indigenous people, but what exactly is your target, or how will this benefit the indigenous people?
Panaginip namin na sa Atty PartyList ay makapagmungkahi kami sa susunod na kongreso ng isang eskwelahan na ang pangalan ay University of Indigenous People. Dahil nga sa ang pagkaalam ko, not more than 10% of the 15 million indigenous peoples all over the country have reached college education. And therefore, with this university, we plan to educate them with a free college. And hopefully, yung poverty nila na maraming mahirap sa kabundukan, magkakaroon sila ng pag-asang magkaroon ng panaginip na yumaman naman sa kanilang natitirang buhay. So,
sige.
Yes.
Attorney, you mentioned that yung panaginip yun na magkaroon ng university para sa mga indigenous people, pero yun din ba ang panaginip ng ating mga indigenous communities?
Oo naman. Sa aking pamamasyal sa sulok-sulukang kabundukan ng Pilipinas, yan lagi ang dinadaing nila na sila ay dahil sa kahirapan, hindi makakuha ng college education. So, sa tingin ko, ang dapat na solusyon ay yung dekadang paghihirap nila na napabayaan na ng gobyerno, nakalimutan na sila. Dapat lang na panahon na bigyan sila ng isang magandang eskwela na kung saan sila masusuportahan, makapag-aral ng koleyo, para magkaroon naman sila ng tsansang umangat sa buhay.
Sir, do you think the school is much of a priority in helping the indigenous community prosper as, they also have a lot of problems that they are facing. Aside, of course, there's discrimination, degradation also of their resource bases. Shouldn't those things be prioritized more to create, a more conducive and safe environment for them to pursue studies?
Sa totoo lang, yung reading the Republic Act 8371, yung Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, right away, to answer your question, we would like also to prioritize the filing of a bill amending Section 7 and 57, yung right to develop lands and natural resources. Kasi over the years, 40 years, 50 years, ang nakukuha lamang ng mga katutubong Pilipino na share dun sa mga mining companies, logging companies, siguro hindi nga lalagpas ng 3%. We should have a legislation that will ensure that the owners of this ancestral domain should get at least 20% of the net profits of these big companies. But of course, with all condition that these big mining companies will comply with all the rules and regulations for responsible and sustainable mining, and that the firms will prioritize the employment of the IPs when they begin to operate on their projects on ancestral domains. So we are not limiting it to quality education. We are focused on the development of natural resources, and as you have said, we would also make sure that the continued years and years, mga dekadang pang-aapi at saka pagdi-discriminate sa mga katutubong Pilipino ay mahinto na. At ihinto lang yan kung may pakita natin sa buong lipunan na karamihan na pala ng mga katutubong Pilipino ay nakapag-puleyo na pala. And one reason why they are being discriminated is yung walang college education po.
Attorney, no offense, but you said we should stop with the discrimination, but you mentioned also during the press conference yung kamangmangan ng mga IP. Don't you think that's discrimination also to the lack of education that they're getting?
Well, I'm sorry for that choice of word when I had that first news conference. I should have said that many IPs lack college education. And that's the reason why they continue to wallow in poverty. And only one of the ways to make them improve on their lives is to give them free college education.
And in this party list, as it is focused and centered on Indigenous people, where do you get the credibility? Are there also members of the IP community that are part of this party list?
Yes, all our nominees are truly representatives of indigenous tribes, and that they represent not only the indigenous tribe, but as well the heart for the poor in general. Denise.
And are there any other advocacies, sir, that the party list would like to pursue, aside from education, and as you mentioned, of course, also the mining rights as well? How about when it comes also to the armed conflict that the IP community always find themselves in the middle in, and also they find themselves defenseless?
I am a lawyer, and I have taught law in Atty de Manila as well as in New Era University for more than a decade. And one of our advocacies is to make sure that the IPs who have been dispossessed of their lands by unscrupulous land grabbers will no longer or will be controlled drastically so that they will enjoy what really is theirs. And right now, yes, the IPs are torn between two lovers. There, on one hand, there are the leftist groups who would like to convince them to join the rebel movement, and on the other hand, there are rightist groups who want to insist that they should not just be in the center, but they should belong at the right center of government. And so the poor IPs are caught in between, and hopefully with us as Ako IP party list leading them, giving them a voice in Congress, this situation will no longer be continuing affecting the lives of the many IPs, especially in Mindanao.
Attorney Valera of the Coalition of Indigenous People PartyList. Attorney Valera, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.